Right back to work on this 3rd gen Prelude. I've got some oil today. We're gonna go ahead and change the filter, change the drain plug and washer, and then I'm gonna fill it at least most of the way up with oil. I'm gonna wait until the car's back on the ground to top it off, and that way I can make sure everything's level and I'm doing it appropriately. Got myself a new K&N filter, new drain plug and washer. If any of you guys are doing this on your 3rd gen, M14 by 1.5. And then if you're using the K&N, it's an HP 1004. I had this old filter on there really tight, so I ended up having to use a wrench. I had to use duct tape. It got weird. I'm just gonna go ahead and take this one off and try not to make a mess. Now the bag should hopefully catch most of the oil. Or no oil? Yeah, no oil. Okay, cool, so that was easy. Didn't even need that. A little bit of oil to put around this new washer, make sure it seals up nice. Okay, that should be pretty good there. That's hand tight. Next, I'm gonna replace this pan drain bolt here with a new washer and bolt. So we'll just unscrew that. I'm hoping it's not cross-threaded because it gets bound up a little bit there. I mean, with a wrench, it's pretty easy to take it off, but I'm a little worried that the threads are starting to go on the inside. The threads on the old bolt actually look great. I don't see any issues. And a new bolt. And get that on there. And we'll throw this guy in. Okay, yeah, it still gets bound up a little bit there, but I can actually keep tightening this mostly by hand. All right, so there's tight, and I'll go maybe like a little bit past tight, and then that I'm gonna call sealed up. So if this holds up nicely, our new oil pan gasket holds up nicely, and our new rear main seal holds up nicely, this motor should not be leaking oil, knock on wood. Clutch and pressure plate are all installed and torqued down to spec. I'm gonna try and put this exhaust piece back up to the manifold, and I went ahead and picked up some new shiny nuts for it, and we'll go ahead and get that cinched down. I left you guys off the other day mounting the exhaust back up to the manifold, and since then I actually discovered that the clutch was not going to work. My old clutch and pressure plate are fit for a 90 to 91 spline on the transmission, and the new transmission is for an 88. Turns out the difference between 88, 89 and 90 and 91 is a spline size difference, so I went ahead and had to order a new pressure plate and clutch, so we'll have a brand new transmission, and well, new to me, and clutch and pressure plate to go into the Prelude. One issue is I ordered that clutch kit over a week ago now, and they had sent me an Audi S5 headlight. Not really sure where that discrepancy came from, but I'm waiting on them to send me the new part so that way I can go ahead and put the new clutch on the flywheel that we already have installed. For today I ordered not a pizza, but a new speedometer cable that I'm gonna go ahead and try and install, and we can pull the speedometer sensor out of the new transmission and hopefully get it mounted up to this. We'll just leave it kind of sitting on top of the engine bay, and then once we get the transmission installed, all we gotta do is bolt that thing right down. Here's what's left of the old speedometer cable. I kind of just ripped it out of the old Speedo sensor, which was definitely broken. And this cable was already toast. My speedometer hardly worked. And it goes back down here by the brake booster and then through the firewall. So first I need to get the old one out, which means getting underneath basically the console here, getting behind the gauge cluster, pulling the Speedo cable out, and then we got to pull it out from the firewall and then basically do the opposite to reinstall the new one. I'm gonna try and just kind of fish this thing through the firewall this way. I've already unplugged it from, well, it was actually already unplugged. Turns out I never even put it in because I knew the Speedo sensor was broken, so I must have just left it unplugged. And I'm gonna basically back it through the firewall here if I can. It might be easier for me to pull it through the other way. It's definitely going to get hung up on these little extra layers of rubber, so I might try and cut these off and then cut off this big useless thing here, and then we should be able to just pull this right through the firewall. We just take this off. Now we'll just try and pull this whole guy through here and out through the interior. Side by side of the new cable and the old cable, just to show you that they are about the same length. Ignore the fact that the inside of the cable is totally pulled out of the rubber on the old one, but they're about the same size. Now we just take the new one and push this, I'm guessing, through the firewall back into the engine bay, and then we'll hook the end up to the back of the gauge cluster. Here I've got the new cable just pulled through a little bit, and we can pull it the rest of the way, at least mostly until we get to the end of it. For anyone that's wondering, this is the part number I used. It's by a company called ATP Y915. It's a Speedo cable made in Taiwan. It said it was for same era Accords and the 3rd gen Prelude. So we'll see if this works. I'm gonna back out this speed sensor off of the new transmission. It's just held on by this bolt here. Set this aside. And now I should just be able to pull the speed sensor out. There we go. And I'm gonna go ahead and just replace this bolt right back in where it came from, so again I don't lose it. We've got the speed sensor out, we've got the new cable pushed through the firewall and hooked up inside the car. I went ahead and pulled this boot off of the old cable, and it just slides up and over just like that. Pretty simple. And I went ahead and, oh, that's fun. Well, let me find that real quick. So I saved this tiny little clip here that came off of the old speed sensor. Oh man, I'm just making a mess. Basically, once you push this cable down into this, there's a slot here on the speed sensor that this little guy pops down into. So we need to basically take this end of the cable, push it down into the speed sensor. Kind of had to wiggle it and spin it a bit to get it to seat down. And now I'm just looking for that little groove, this one here, in the cable, and I'm trying to match it up to the groove on the speed sensor. And then once I have it lined up, pop the clip in place. Kind of confused how this clip goes. After messing with it for a minute, I think I figured it out. And first of all, I put this boot on backwards. I think it's supposed to go up and over like that, with the fatter end on the bottom. And this goes into the speed sensor, line up the grooves, and then you take this clip and you pinch one side of it into the groove. I was trying to pinch both sides somehow or push the cable through it, but I think it just sits in the groove on one side like so, and then that prevents the cable from coming back out. And then you can even push the rubber over it, that clip, and I think that will hold it in place as well. So now this cable's not going anywhere, and hopefully this will make our speed sensor work. In the meantime, guys, thank you so much for watching. I will pick things back up on the transmission install once I get that clutch kit in. Unfortunately, I can't really make any moves forward besides knocking out this Speedo cable. In the meantime, I'll probably off camera clean up the wheels a bit, maybe do a little more degreasing around the engine, but I won't bore you guys with that, so we'll pick things right back up once I have the parts, installing the transmission, and hopefully getting this Prelude back on the ground to run. So thank you guys for watching. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it, comments below, and I will see you guys next time. Keep elevating. Adios.